one of the things that I've come to realize is that Americans, whatever their background, whatever their race, whatever their religion, whatever part of the country they come from, they share certain values. And one of those values is a belief in the American dream, a belief that if we make it, that if we try, if we work hard, if we make the effort, then we can succeed, and that people can find a job that pays a living wage, and that we can send our kids to college and they can have a better life than we had, and that if we're sick, we can get health care, and we can retire with dignity and respect. I think everybody believes that. And unfortunately, what's been happening, I think, in this country over the last 7, 8 years is that American dream feels like it's slipping away. And one of the things that I think people are most worried about these days is the issue of retirement security. And obviously, many of you who are now retired recognize how difficult it is on fixed incomes to manage all the costs. My grandmother is somebody who is still living by herself and is always concerned about rises in costs, whether it's for electricity or her health care premiums. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit for a moment about the issue of retirement security. Because Americans who work hard their entire lives, I believe, have earned the right to dignity and security. That's the promise that each of us wants to be realized within our families, and it's a promise that I think we have to keep for all American families. And for generations, Washington worked to protect that promise for working people. That's the promise that my grandparents knew, even though they came of age during the Great Depression. My grandfather served in World War II in Patton's Army. My grandmother worked on a bomber assembly line. When they set out west from Kansas, where they had grown up, to build their lives together after the war, they did so with the confidence that Washington would be there to help them reach a secure retirement. That's the promise that FDR made, and it was a promise that Washington kept for decades while people like my grandparents moved through the ups and downs of life in America's middle class. But today, Washington is not working to preserve this fundamental part of the American dream. A secure retirement is no longer a guarantee for the middle class. It's harder to save, it's harder to retire. Pensions are getting crunched. The promise of Social Security is growing harder to keep. And that's why I want to fight every single day to extend the promise of a retirement that is dignified and secure when I'm President of the United States. It starts with protecting Social Security today, tomorrow, and forever. For millions of Americans, Social Security is the difference between a comfortable retirement and the risk of poverty. We have an obligation to secure the future of one of the most successful programs in American history, and that starts with talking straight with the American people about the challenges that lie ahead. Social Security is strong, but as more baby boomers retire, the long-term cash flow needs to be addressed. We have to make sure Social Security is there for future generations. And that means, first of all, making sure that the Social Security Trust Fund is actually preserved and we're not spending that money on other things. All too often in Washington, people see the Social Security Trust Fund as a piggy bank that they can raid anytime they want. And what we have to make sure of is that money that's coming in for Social Security stays for Social Security. Now, we also know that the Republicans will be running a different kind of message. John McCain has already said that he supports private accounts for Social Security. In his words, along the lines that President Bush proposed. Let me be clear. I believe that privatizing Social Security was a bad idea when George Bush proposed it. It's a bad idea today. It would cost $1 trillion to implement at the front end and would put the retirement plans of millions of Americans at risk on a volatile Wall Street in the stock market. That's why I stood up against the plan in the Senate, and that's why I won't stand for it as president. But Senator McCain's campaign went even further a few weeks ago, suggesting that the best answer to the growing pressures on Social Security might be to cut cost of living adjustments or to raise the retirement age. I think there's another option that is fairer to working men and women. We have to protect Social Security for future generations without pushing the burden onto seniors who've earned the right to retire with dignity. So here's my plan. Right now, the Social Security payroll tax applies to the first $102,000 a worker makes. I think the best way forward is to adjust the cap on the payroll tax so that people like me who make more than $102,000 have to pay a little bit more, and the people who are in need are protected. That way we can extend the promise of Social Security without shifting the burden onto seniors who are vulnerable. And we should include what's called a donut hole to make sure that this change doesn't catch middle-class Americans who make just a little bit over $102,000, but don't make a lot of money. On the other hand, people like my friend Warren Buffett can afford to pay a little bit more on his payroll taxes. But Social Security is not enough. More and more seniors are struggling with the cost of everything from gas to groceries, and we know that rising costs are hardest for folks on fixed incomes. And that's why I'll make retirement more secure by eliminating taxes, the income taxes, for any retiree making less than $50,000 a year. Let me repeat that. If your income is less than $50,000 a year, I don't think you should have to pay income tax on your Social Security. This would completely eliminate income taxes for 7 million seniors across the country and provide a savings of approximately $1,400 per person each year. And it's also time, I think, to end the outrage of CEOs cashing out while workers lose their pensions. Pension protection is something that we have to put at the top of our priority list. Right now, bankruptcy laws are more focused on protecting banks than protecting pensions. And I don't think that's fair. It's not the America I believe in. It's time to stop cutting back the safety net for working people while we protect golden parachutes for the well-off. If you work hard and play by the rules, then you've earned your pension. If a company goes bankrupt, then workers need to be our top priority, not an afterthought. I fought against a bankruptcy bill in the Senate that did more to protect credit card companies and banks than help working people. And as president, I will limit circumstances when retirement benefits can be cut and increase the wages and benefits that workers can claim in bankruptcy court. We'll require companies to disclose their pension fund investments. We'll put an end to the outrage of executives getting bonuses while workers watch pensions disappear. And we'll make sure that no American goes bankrupt just because they get sick. Finally, we're not going to help folks reach retirement unless we encourage savings. But today, personal savings is at an all-time low as Americans are dealing with higher costs and a credit crunch. Meanwhile, 75 million working Americans don't have employer-based retirement plans. And that's why I've proposed automatic workplace pensions. There will be no red tape or complicated forms. Employers will provide a direct deposit of a small percentage of each paycheck into your account. You can add to it or you can opt out of it at any time. The employers will have an easy opportunity to match employee savings. If you shift jobs, your savings will roll into your new employer's system. If you become self-employed, you will control your account. And studies show that about 80% of Americans will enroll in such a plan if given the option to pursue it. This will put a secure retirement more within reach for millions of working families. You know, since the New Deal, we've had a basic understanding in America. If you work hard and pay into the system, you've earned the right to a secure retirement. That's the promise that was kept for my grandparents and Michelle's mom, and for so many families here in Oregon and across the country. But in George Bush and John McCain's America, the message to the middle class has been, you're on your own. Well, I'm running for president because I believe we have to be a country that says we're all in this together and that we can do this together. We can come together to keep America's promise, not just for this generation of seniors, but for our children and our grandchildren. That's a principle I think is worth fighting for, and with your help, that's what I hope to do every single day when I'm President of the United States.